All right, there's a crisis that many of us are aware of here in America. Most households right now are living paycheck to paycheck, and this is a very serious crisis. Depending on the surveys you read about, it's anywhere from 53 to 67% of American households are living paycheck to paycheck. What does living paycheck to paycheck mean? It simply means that for every month's income that you bring in, you spend it all. There's nothing left over. And it means that you don't have enough savings to take care of any unforeseen expense or unforeseen emergency. And what happens subsequently, naturally, when you can't cover those expenses, you go in debt. And this is a major crisis where 53 to 67% of Americans are falling victim of. And this is a terrible position to be in. I've been there, and it's just not fun. And I think that as Americans, it's really easy to want immediate reassurance that things are going to get okay, and we want to look elsewhere to find that. And that's where I can fall victim in, and that's where I have fallen victim in. And a lot of times there's three different areas where I look to find relief versus looking to myself. The first area I look for relief is I look for government / politicians to save the day. Here's the deal. I'm a middle-aged man, I'm 40. Politicians are not going to save you. They can help with some policies like taxes, but a lot of times those immediate things, they cannot help you immediately. Some of the tax policies, they can help you a little bit with years to come, and it takes a long time. But a lot of politicians, when they're running for governor or senator, they make all these promises they can't really deliver. And a lot of times it's too good to be true because it's too good and it's not true. So most politicians, you have to remember, they're in the game of politics, and what they focus in on is they want to get 50.1% of the vote. They're winning a popularity, so they put their finger in the air most of the time. They figure out what will help me win votes, and a lot of times they can't really deliver that. So a lot of times when I was living paycheck to paycheck, to look for government policies to give relief. The reality is it's not going to really come and really affect me personally. The second thing that's kind of silly, we dream of winning the lottery. Or nowadays, which is terrible, is there's DraftKings. It is an epidemic. It is terrible for especially young men right now with how much money they're spending on betting apps. But we look for like a home run right away to get us out of our financial emergency. That's very unlikely it's going to happen. Now, a lot of times though, what we look for peace when we're living paycheck to paycheck is pleasure. And when we look for pleasure is we start spending money on things we don't need, entertainment, going out to eat, drinking a lot of soda. And for me, at times when I was in my worst financial state, you could kind of see it in my body. That means I gained a lot of weight. And I think that, I know it sounds terrible, but that's just the reality of things, is that sometimes when we're living paycheck to paycheck, we don't make good, healthy choices for our lives. And a lot of times we don't feel like we have a lot of hope, and we go from there. So as I've gotten older, I think that in order to move forward and get better at things, I think we have to determine, and I think it was really important for me to determine, is do I have agency in my life? Do I have agency? Can I actually have hope, moving forward? Do I live in a good country, or am I going to listen to all the messaging out there that we live in the worst country to ever be? And I think that it's really easy with social media to be held captive by the latest and greatest doomsday scrolling. The older I get, I think it just comes down to two different camps. Now, I'm talking about 90% of Americans. I'm not talking about the 10% of Americans that are actually dealing with life-threatening illnesses, dealing with cancer. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about 90% of Americans. It's really easy as Americans to make excuses to not make any changes. I'm talking to you, 90% of Americans that are not dealing with life-threatening diseases right now, or dealing with being stolen from a company, things like that. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking to the 90% of people that fall into that 67 to 53% of living paycheck to paycheck. Fall into two different camps, in my opinion. Camp one is having a mindset of abundance. The second is, do you have a scarcity mindset? So the way that I look at an abundant mindset is you see opportunities for your own life, for professional development, personal development, and friendships, things like that. You see a lot of opportunities to really grow and to improve. Scarcity mindset falls into you're the victim, nothing's going to get better, and you have a really covetous mindset. You believe that life sucks for you and woe is me, and then you believe that anybody's successful, how dare they? They didn't deserve it. You didn't deserve the challenges you face in your life, and the people that are successful don't deserve their successes. When you have an abundant mindset, you believe that you're happy that your neighbor's successful, and you believe that you can be successful down the road. And you have to really define what success is. Success does it mean not living paycheck to paycheck, or does success mean you have a yacht? It's like, I think that you need to be realistic there. But it's really easy to make excuses. If you want to find excuses, you're going to go look for them. In order to move forward from living paycheck to paycheck, you have to realize that no one's going to save you. No one will be, no third party except yourself. And that's a really hard reality, and I've had to face that, and you're just going to take sacrifices to get to that point. But I think you can. We live in the greatest nation to ever exist. Yes, it has flaws, but there's so many opportunities to consider to move forward. You need to shut the noise out. You need to focus on your own life, and how can you start living, start getting out of the paycheck to paycheck and start improving from there. And one of the common things I hear people complain about all the time is, I wish someone would have trained me to understand how to make a budget in high school. I wish I took a budgeting class. I wish I took a class about taxes. I wish I would have done this or that. I wish someone would have taught me. And that's a scarcity mindset. We live in the internet age. You can figure things out very quickly. Listen to any podcast, things like that. So people make an excuse that I don't know how to make a budget, or I don't know how to save money because no one taught me. That's not an abundant mindset. That's a scarcity mindset. But guess what? When I was in high school, went to public high school at Johnston, I was taught budgeting. I was taught that. I was taught about taxes too. Rodney Wiebers, I think he's a local, he's a local principal now, but he taught me about budgeting when I was 16. Guess what? When I actually started making money when I was 23 after college, guess what? I forgot everything he taught me, because you need to actually make money to understand where money can go. So even if we were taught that in high school, all of us were, none of us are going to remember that after you get out of college. The vast majority won't. And I think the biggest thing as an adult, you need to take responsibility of your financial house. And I think it's really hard, but if you have an abundant mindset, you can get out of the rut of living paycheck to paycheck. It's going to take sacrifice. And it's really difficult. You get one life to live. It's your choice. So how do you do this? How do you move forward on this? And how can you start creating your own path? I think it's the most basic thing you need to do, and that's developing a budget. It's not like DraftKings. You don't have to get the adrenaline rush. It's not like winning the lottery, like when you dream of winning $1 billion, so you can own your own professional NASCAR team or your own professional football team. It's not that. The reality is budgeting is basic, but the basics is what helps you be successful in life. So I'm going to give you 8 steps really quick on what you need to do if you're thinking about doing this. The hard work is actually doing these 8 steps. This is very basic, but when you do this, this will help you. So step 1 is you need to develop a target. What are you trying to do with your budget? Wisdom is knowing the end at the beginning. So where do you want your budget to be? So I'm going to explain a quick percentages to you. So here's your target. This is very generic. So I'm doing zero-based budgeting principles. This doesn't mean every month that you have no money. What this means is that every dollar of income you have will go towards something. So here's your target. 50% needs to go towards your food, housing, transportation, insurance, phone, internet, and if there's any mandatory debt that you need to pay back each month. So that'd be like student loans, things like that, mortgage, you need to do that. So 50%. Next 20% needs to be your wants. Eating out, entertainment, Netflix, vacation, 20% goes towards that. That means discretionary spending. The next 10% is savings. The next thing is 10% is tithing or charitable giving. I think it's really important to give. Have an abundant mindset. The last 10% is strategic. That means debt snowball, retirement, investments. And then house, if you want to own a house, develop a plan to save money for a house down payment. So that's your target. Now, step 2 of this is very obvious, is what is your household net income per month? Do you even know? I watched some of Caleb Hammer's highlights, and he's a financial guru. He talks to people, and the vast majority of his guests have no idea how much money they make per month. They have no clue. They're just winging it. All right, step 3 is list all of your loans/debts. List them all out. So a lot of them are common are your credit cards, your auto loans, student loans, and so, or even payday loans. Hopefully you have no payday loans, but if you do, you need to get out of those as soon as possible. So step 3 is list all your debts. Step 4 is, and then you need to dissect your debts. So what that means is put them in an Excel sheet. You need to name each of your debts, how much you owe per month, and then the next column is the total you currently owe, and the last column is how long is that loan. So you just need to really dissect and know the lay of the land with that. When I was poor and living paycheck to paycheck, not only were we living paycheck to paycheck, but we're also going in more and more debt with credit cards. So it's a terrible feeling. But the point is, when you go through those trials, sometimes you just want to forget it even happened, but you need to get into your debts and figure out what you owe and break them down that way. Step 5 is then you put your debts in order, and then you rank them from the least debt that you owe all the way to the most debt you owe. You're talking about the total that you owe those institutions, and that will develop a debt snowball. That will give you a target how to attack that debt. A debt that you owe, you're promising a bank or an institution you're going to pay them back. So you have to do it. So you need to list that out. So step 5 is the debt snowball. All right, step 6 is you're going to do a 3-month review. So you have your target, you have everything kind of set up, the infrastructure there. Then you're going to test, like, where has my money gone? And then you're going to break them down towards those categories that I talked about, those 5 different categories, which is needs, wants, savings, charitable giving, and then strategic. Like, where is your money even going over the last 3 months? This is painful because you're going to be like, what is going on? But it's very refreshing because you'll figure out, like, what bad subscriptions do I have right now? Where's my money going? Does it fit the target? And what can I just cut out of my life? You need to create progress, and don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. So it's like a lot of times you want to do this, but you feel really defeated. You don't need to feel defeated. You just need to acknowledge what is going on. So you do the 3-month audit over the last 3 months of spending, and the next step is then you do the calculations. Where has your money actually gone? And then the step 8 is then you develop a budget. Where do you need to cut back on? I gave you a target. Maybe 60% of it goes towards your needs. Maybe that's what reality is. That means you don't eat out. What do you like to eat out? You like to go Chick-fil-A? Well, I know there's some grocery stores, they have some unbelievable, air fryer chicken. Maybe just say, that's my weakness, but maybe you buy the air fried chicken and then you just become a master of that. Or maybe you look at a recipe and make the master of that. It's hard, but here's the deal. No one's going to rescue you. You're not going to win the lottery. I'm really sorry. I wish you would. And then you invest in my company. But the point is, it's not going to happen. The government is not going to save you either. The point is, you need to be able to take ownership of your life and go from there. All right. So here's the conclusion. This is a journey. This is a journey every 2 weeks you need to check in on is your budget, because otherwise you're going to fall off and you're going to get back in a bad rut. So this is a journey. So scarcity mindset is full of having a coveting attitude. You get jealous of where people are at financially. I can at times, but you don't realize their journey. So this is a journey. They're climbing their own mountain. You're climbing your own mountain as well. So the climb matters. I think, I can't remember which singer has that, but it's a beautiful song, The Climb, I think it's called, so you can look it up. I think it's Miley Cyrus, so. All right, so why the climb matters, it builds strength. When you actually go through this, take ownership of your life, it will build strength. That's the first thing. You'll find joy if you have little goals each month. You can measure against yourself each month. Are you getting in line with your target? You can get joy with that. And then you also learn lessons. Where were your weak points? I tell my kids all the time when they play athletics, losing is actually a blessing because you get to learn where your weaknesses are. So if you're tracking and measuring your budget, you'll learn what lessons you're having there. So here's a few things how to focus. Take small steps. Take these 8 steps. I did that. Accept the pain of embarrassment, the pain of making bad decisions. Move on and get better from it. And then you gotta learn to love the process. This is the way you can take control of your life. The last thing I think you need to do to go on this journey is you need to find a support group, friends, family that share the like-mindedness. If you want to have an abundant mindset, but you're around people that have scarcity mindset, those are terrible friends. You're going to fall back into the scarcity mindset. You need to find friends that want to do something with their life, want to be productive, want to get after it. That's what's really important. If you have any questions, please reach out. I want to leave you with this last quote. It says, to conquer oneself is a greater victory than to conquer thousands in a battle. A lot of the times it's really easy when there's problems to look elsewhere to solve them except yourself. And I found through a lot of strategy, being a part of a good support group, and the blessings of the Lord that I've been able to make progress in my journey financially. I'm not perfect. I have been poor. There are seasons of scarcity, but if you have an abundant mindset and you trust God, you can have success.